Welcome. I'm joined today by Kylie-Ann from KAG Financial. Welcome, Kylie-Ann. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really excited to get to hear about your journey and for you to really dig deep and tell us what motivates you, what drives you, and what ultimately led you to set up on your own and build what is now KAG Financial. So welcome. So Kylie-Ann, tell us a little bit about your journey. How did it all start? Where did your passion for finance come from?
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. So I'll be honest with you, I did not start with a passion for finance. That was not what I thought I was going to end up doing at all. I actually did fashion at college. I wanted to be an illustrator. So very, very different. I ended up with a job at Barclays just to earn some money at 17. Started just working on the cashier's desk. Ended up really enjoying it. And gradually progressed to the point where I did my advising qualifications, qualified at 20 and then started advising. So absolutely loved helping people. I was really passionate about seeing people's house buying journey. I loved helping first-time buyers, especially people that had been stuck renting for quite some time, didn't ever think that they could own a property. That really lit a fire inside of me, and I just wanted to help as many people as possible. It was really difficult to start with because it was a very heavily male-dominated industry back then.
Yes.
And I was very young to start doing it as well, so I did have to find my feet. I stayed there for a few years, went and did a bit of work for an estate agency for a few years, which really developed me in terms of what I did not want the business to look like. You know, I got a lot of lessons in terms of what a customer journey shouldn't look like from that business. It was extremely corporate. Yes. And then I left there and set up completely on my own. I was just a one-woman band to begin with. And then I got that busy that I had no choice but to grow a team, which has led me to where I am now. And now we're a team of 9.
That's brilliant. So if we just take a step back into that initial journey, I mean, that is a big difference between finance and fashion. Yeah. I mean, it starts with an F. But apart from that, it's completely like polar opposite things. And you know, some of the things that fashion's quite exciting and, you know, fun, and you've got finance, which can be quite dry and boring. Yeah. Like, talk to me about when you were in that moment at Barclays doing your cashiering and, you know, into that journey with the customers. What was that moment that you felt, oh my gosh, I think that this is really for me? Like, I've got this passion for this now?
I think it's because I've always been a people person. I'm very nosy by nature. I love finding out about people. And I think when I was sat down with people one-on-one, I loved hearing their story, hearing what issues they had. And I absolutely love problem solving. So I'd always be thinking in my head, right, how can we piece this together? And I've kept that with me to now. You know, we deal with really complex customers, and putting all the pieces together and finding a solution is something I get a lot of satisfaction from. So I think it just started with that, really. And I suppose the issue is fashion is an extremely difficult industry to get into. Everybody that I did my fashion qualification with, there's only one of them out of a group of 35 girls that actually made it to do a job in fashion. So I think that would have been a very difficult route to go down anyway. But I just really found my feet with it and found that I just enjoyed it. So I gave it a go and I've stuck at it.
So really your curiosity is what drove you in that respect and that connection with people.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that getting into fashion would have been extremely difficult, but just to take a moment to acknowledge here, you know, at 17 years old and, you know, qualifying at 20, getting into finance in a male-dominated environment won't have been an easy choice either.
No, it definitely wasn't, no.
So talk to me about some of the challenges that you faced as a woman, as a young woman for that as well.
Yeah, I think to begin with, I don't think anyone really took me seriously. I was the youngest in the team. I was the only female. And I feel like they all just thought I was going to go off and have babies and it wasn't really going to be my career. And I always wanted to prove people wrong. And I think when I did leave the estate agents and go completely self-employed, there was quite a few comments made about how women generally don't do well building a business in this industry because it is predominantly male businesses that you see. But I've always had that in my head as a bit of a driver. because I wanted to prove people wrong, and I wanted to prove that there was absolutely no reason why a woman couldn't do it, because we are great in finance. We're generally a lot more empathetic than men. We sympathise a lot more. We generally understand issues with a bit more of a softer approach. So yeah, it's paid off for me in a lot of aspects in terms of being a good advisor and hopefully a good leader with having the team as well.
I mean, that must have been a tremendous achievement when you set up on your own, and to have that feeling of, being able to say, well, I proved you all wrong. And to find that, I mean, for you, that kind of been your only driver in respect of proving them wrong. What led you to go, okay, well, one, I'm going to prove you wrong, and as a woman, I can succeed in this industry. But, what was that step further forward for you that made you think, this is, it's not for me in respect of the environment that I've been in, but it is for me doing this as an owner and as a business leader?
I think I was tired of being a cog in a really big machine and not having enough influence. And there was so much that I could see needed to be changed and what could be improved. And I didn't feel like I really had a voice while I was employed. And I knew that I could get the clients. I already had a lot of customers that would come to me anyway. That didn't scare me too much. It was just actually knowing that I was going to have an income coming in. I think that's when anyone goes self-employed, I think that is the number one thing that they worry about. They worry where the money is going to come from. But as well, I wanted to show my daughter that there are different options. You don't just have to stay in an employed role, although that might be the safest route. I think people are becoming bolder with the career choices, and more people are going self-employed. And I wanted to show to her that there are so many options when it comes to how you earn your money and what you do and what makes you happy. And yeah, I ran with that really. I had no idea how it was going to turn out. I never had images of it growing. I thought it would just be me on my own, just happy being a one-woman band. But yeah, it's just turned out to become this amazing thing that it is now.
I mean, one of the things that I saw on your website, which I absolutely love, it's getting mortgage advice from your friends. It's that ethos that you promote and that community that you look to kind of create with your customers. And, it's almost like getting that advice from somebody that isn't going to overly complicate things for you. Because, when I was younger and I was looking for mortgage advice, it's so complicated. All the jargon, all of the complexity, they make it sound like it's absolutely impossible. And you end up signing something. And I will admit, when I was in my 20s and we signed our first mortgage, I don't know that I quite understood what I was signing. I mean, do you find that often with people that when they come to see you? I
think one thing that we do well is we come across quote unquote normal. We don't all wear suits to work. We're not there with the briefcase. We're not anything stereotypical. The office environment is very relaxed. It's very modern. We deal with everything. So we don't judge customers, if they've got a bad credit rating or if their income's really complicated or if the situation's a bit unusual. We're very open-minded and we will pretty much get our teeth into anything. Whereas there's a lot of old school advisors out there that generally will only do the really straightforward cases. We love things that are more complicated because it's a challenge and it gives us more satisfaction. So I think when customers come to us, the feedback that we always get is, we're just not scared to ask you anything. You explain everything in a way that we can understand. And our goal is to make finance and mortgages not as serious, not as scary. And we want to be completely approachable. And we get that a lot. We get that across a lot with our social media as well.
That's fantastic. And you spoke a moment ago about, when you were coming up in the industry and that you felt that you weren't taken seriously. And, you then went and worked at an estate agent and you kind of you almost got a roadmap in respect of this is how not to do it. So you kind of built your knowledge in respect of from a place of this is what I don't want to do, and started building what you did want to do. So talk to me about that leap that you had in between going from you went to the bank and then you went into the estate agency. How did you then go, okay, I'm now going to go and set up on my own?
So I worked under a network. So most advisors generally when they go self-employed will work under a network and they look after all of your compliance and everything like that. So I was supported heavily by them. The network that we're still under now is Primis. And it was a real learning curve because you've gone from using your employer's system, you know, their office, everything, to suddenly I'm sat at home on my kitchen table thinking, how do I do this? And it was really difficult. There's no way about it. I was working 90-hour weeks, week in, week out for the first few years. But I had to do that to get to the stage where I was established. People knew my name and I was starting to get a bit of a reputation, enough of a reputation to constantly have a flow of customers coming in. So I don't regret that. But I would say to anyone looking to go self-employed, you have to be willing to put the hours in. You know, your phone does not turn off at 5 o'clock and you need to be available on weekends. Taking holidays is hard. There's all that side of it. But it massively paid off for me because without going through that process, I wouldn't be here. And I used to be mobile as well. I didn't have an office, so I literally used to go and see every single one of my customers.
Yeah.
So I was doing like 50,000 miles a year in my car because trying to logistically organise your customers when they're dotted around everywhere is really difficult. So I'd be doing really long journeys and, thinking of doing that now is crazy because I'm in my office now and customers generally come to us. But I think making the leap, it's so scary. And looking back, you know, I was really worried whether it was going to work or not, but I knew I had the determination to absolutely make it work, you know, no matter what I had to do. And going through them 90-hour work weeks and all the mileage and everything else and the stress that came with those first few years, it's definitely paid off.
So talking to, you know, all those young women out there that might be aspiring to set up on their own in any capacity, whether it be in the financial services or elsewhere, what would be a piece of advice that you would give to them if they were worried or unsure as to, you know, what to do?
I think the first one is you have to believe in yourself. Don't wait for someone to tell you that you can do it or that it's going to work. If you can't tell yourself that you can do it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, because it was my own belief that got me out of bed every day. You know, being self-employed, if you've not got drive, it could be very easy to sit at home watching Netflix all day. And I just was the complete opposite of that. Like, it was really strange when I first went self-employed, that if I needed to nip to Tesco in the middle of the day, I remember walking around thinking, people are going to think I'm skiving. And I obviously wasn't, but it was because I'd had it drilled into me from being 17 that you go to work and you stay there all day and then you're allowed to leave. And it's if you've got the drive, you've got the belief in yourself. And I'd say the biggest thing nowadays you have to be good at if you're going to be self-employed is your social media and putting your brand out there. I think if you've got those three things, then you should be absolutely fine. But just go for it.
Just go for it. Yeah. I mean, because sometimes you do have that self-belief. But it's kind of like people, it's that start-stop. They don't quite go over that line. And it's when you just say, you just have to go for it. And it is taking that leap into the unknown and just going, you know, have that self-belief and go, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And where do you think that sense of acknowledgement came from you in respect of, I know I can do this? Did you have any mentors, or was there anybody that inspired you previously? Where do you think that, you know, you developed that self-belief in yourself? Because nowadays it's really crucial, I think, for, you know, the younger generation coming through schools or, you know, in other paths that they're going through their journey, to find that self-belief. We live in a very difficult society in which criticism is out there all the time by way of social media or otherwise. What encouraged you to keep pushing and help you develop that self-belief?
I think a lot of it came from my customers, if I'm honest. I was always given amazing feedback from customers, and I knew I was making a difference with that. I knew that I wasn't just doing it half-heartedly. I was putting everything into it, and that feedback constantly came, and you know, it was really productive. That I put the work in and I saw the results from that. But while you're employed, I suppose you're doing it for someone else. So I would just look at it and look at the results I was having every month, thinking, well, I can replicate this, but go and do it for myself. And I always had in the back of my head that I would do anything if I had to pay the bill. So if it all went wrong and I ended up on a checkout, I would 100% do it, no problem. But I had to give it a go.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was either that point where I was unhappy, where I was employed, and I wanted to make a difference. Because if I hadn't have done it then, I think I'd have just ended up in another employed role and it'd have been the same cycle. I just didn't feel satisfied. And within the first week of being self-employed, I had that fire, and I knew that I could get a lot more satisfaction from doing that.
Amazing. So it's that self-belief, that leaping into the unknown, that knowing that you've got that drive to keep pushing and listening to the feedback that you received as well, because that's got to be immensely satisfying to know that you're helping people and that, you know, they give you that praise back and to thank you for it, really.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So you talked to me earlier about you have, you know, a young family, you have a daughter. So how did that transpire in respect of running your own business and having a child?
Yeah, so she would have been, I'm just trying to think how old she would have been when I set the business. So I went self-employed in 2017, so she would have been 4. So it was difficult because she was just at the point where she was starting school, still very young, still heavily reliant on me. But I just made it work. I think women do that anyway. I think we're very good at making it work, but I had no choice but to make it work. So I worked around her, you know, when she was in bed, the laptop would be back out. I'd do some work on a morning before she'd go to school. And yeah, I crammed it in when I could, really. You just have to do it, don't you? So yeah, but she's always been so proud of everything that I've done, and I've tried to involve her as much as possible. So, you know, when I got the keys for my office, I took her in. She was one of the first people to go around and see it. And like, she did a thing at school recently about role models. And I was saying, oh, who did you say was your role model? And she's like, you. And it just melted my heart so much. But I think as a mum, going into the world now, I think with social media and everything else, it is so scary for young adults. And I think if they can see that their mum's done it, they've made social media work for them, it's not all bad. No. You know, there's still lots of good left in the world, then I think we're doing something right. And that's what I'm trying to do with her.
Yeah, and it's obviously, you know, for you, is showing her as well, you know, you're a mom, you're a woman, you're a leader, you're a business owner. Yeah. You've developed a community, you've developed a team, you've built a brand. Yeah. You know, that doesn't just happen from a whim. No. Just doesn't come from nowhere. And you said earlier that she's one of your main drivers, that, you know, you keep pushing to show her that if you put your mind to it, anything is possible.
Definitely.
Do you feel that, you know, when you had that moment in which she said that, you know, you were her role model, that must have felt, you know, quite a pivotal moment for you, perhaps, to go, you know, it's paying off, what I'm doing is worth it?
Yeah, because I think, like everyone, you get mum guilt, and I've definitely had my fair share of it when I have been sat there with the laptop out, and there's been days where I've had to work late and things like that. And I think it's good for your kids to see you working hard. I think sometimes people are scared of that, and people are scared of mum guilt and thinking that they should be available all the time. But in reality, a lot of the time now, you do have to put the work in. And if we're not showing our kids that you have to put the work in, then we're not doing it right, really.
No, and I think that's a really important, you know, point to make, is, you know, things like this come off the back of hard work. It's not handed to you, and you know, certainly wasn't handed to you. You came about in a hard industry for a woman. And, you know, do you advocate for women in leadership and in business? Do you have any? Do you recruit specifically for women, or do you focus on anybody? What are your values in respect of your business?
No. So we're a team of 9. We have 2 men, so it's not all women. I wouldn't say that I recruit specifically women at all. It's more about the person and them being the right fit for the customers and the team. Definitely, I definitely do advocate for women, though. Within the network, we do like a Leading Ladies event every year, and I've actually been a speaker there the past 2 years. And I do think it's important in business that women do get together and they are there for each other, because it's a really hard time to be a business owner. And the last few years with COVID and everything else, it's been very, very tough. And I think especially as mums, women do probably struggle a bit more finding that balance and having a bit more guilt on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely important for female business owners to talk to each other.
And how have you found that networking support has helped you?
So having other women that are business owners around me has definitely helped. I think it's always important, generally speaking, to know someone that's doing better than you. I think if you only surround yourself with people that are just starting out and you're years ahead of them, then you're not always going to be in a position to learn. I have got a few friends that have got similar businesses, but they're a few years ahead. So they might be bigger or they might be making more profit. And I love to learn from other people that are doing things differently or doing a bit better. So I can see, you know, how do I get to their stage? And I think that's one key thing I would take away if you are starting out in business. Try and get in a circle with other people, even if it's not the same industry, but just a business that's doing well, because you're always going to be able to learn from them.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you mentioned that as well, because I don't know if you've come across this, but certainly when I was, you know, coming up and, you know, certainly throughout my career, you know, there was always this thing that there was that belief that, you know, women had to be pitted against each other, or, you know, you couldn't be friends or wish for your successes or support each other because, you know, you would be fighting for the same promotion or the same, you know, aspirations, or if you helped each other, you would always get, you know, backstabbed or anything like that. And, you know, it's been my experience that when you surround yourself with the right women, that's an incredibly positive and an energizing experience when you all come together and there's that energy and that flow that comes from that supportiveness. And, you know, what has been your experience in this regard?
Just what you've said. I've never really faced any negativity with women. I think that is one thing that's always mentioned, you know, women aren't great at supporting each other, but I think it's the complete opposite, especially nowadays. Yeah, I think women do want to support other women, and it's ridiculous to think that we don't. Like, we're all on a different path. You know, there's plenty of business to go around, so it's silly, really, to think of it like that. I would never look at another woman in that way.
No, it's almost a frustrating statement to hear sometimes that you think, well, where has this come from? Like, why do people feel this way? You wouldn't think that, you know, in any other circumstance, or, you know, if it was men, you know, you think, well, you know, they're boys that help each other out, and, you know, they've got that network. But it's the same for women. Yeah. You know, and have you come across any particular women in your path that have helped you build or, you know, develop where you are and who you are?
Not particularly, no. I think I've worked with a lot of males, in all honesty. I'm trying to think of like managers in the past that I've had, and they've pretty much all been male. I think for me, I've influenced myself a lot in terms of how I wanted to be as a leader, because I've seen such a gap in leadership for women. You know, I only really had male managers, so I think I learned from them in terms of how I could change that to make myself better as a manager, you know, what not to do, but then maybe things that they did well. But yeah, I think there's definitely other women in the industry that I look up to, and have friends that do the same thing as me, and we all talk on WhatsApp constantly. And yeah, it's just about supporting each other. Yes. You definitely need to be talking to each other nowadays. It's tough. It's
building that community around you and knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah,
you definitely. Know, as business owners, sometimes, you know, we feel that, oh my gosh, this has happened today or that's happened, and you sometimes do feel alone. Yeah. But it's knowing that you're not, and there's people out there to support you.
Yeah, so and I think especially as a business owner, I think a lot of the time you do feel like you can't share anything. Yeah. Like, oh, I've got this problem, but no one else is having this problem, so I can't talk about it, or it shows a sign of weakness. I think people are quite proud. But a lot of the time, talking to someone about it pretty much solves it anyway. It makes you feel better just talking about it, doesn't it? So,
and you can find a solution a lot quicker. Or sometimes that reassurance that where you are headed is the right direction, or the decision that you took was the right one. Or it's just, you know, that sharing that load and knowing that if you have a community that you can trust, then it makes it worthwhile, doesn't it? But it's ensuring that you've got the right people around you, surely, and trusting the right people has got to be quite important, especially in your industry.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I am lucky with the people I've got around me. Even my own team, though, I fully trust them.
Yeah.
And we are very open in the office. You know, we do all share, probably too much at times, but yeah, we all know what's going on, you know, with each other's home life and everything, and that makes us work really well together.
So just pausing on that, tell me a little bit about your leadership style. How would you describe it?
So I hated when I was employed being micromanaged. Mm-hmm. That is one thing that I think can turn great people off, and I think it can really push down people's productivity, because if you're asking them to fill 10 different returns in every week, you know, tell me what you've done with this customer, why have you not got that? I'm the complete opposite of that. So my advisors are self-employed. Mm-hmm. So even though they're part of KAG, obviously they're in charge of their own earnings. And I think that helps, because if they're not productive, they're not going to get paid well that month. And I'm lucky that they are all very driven. So I've never had to micromanage any of them. They've all learnt to advise from me, and they've learnt how, you know, to be as good as possible when it comes to being an advisor, and we all share experiences constantly. But I'd say I'm a very open book. They all come to me with problems without being worried about it, you know, if they're ever concerned about anything. And I'm not sat up in an ivory tower. That's one thing that I never wanted to do. I don't lock myself away in a separate office. I am sat with the rest of the team. Yeah. And because I still advise myself, they see me doing the same job as them. So even though it's my name above the door, I think a lot of the time they see me as one of them. And that does massively help, because I wouldn't ever ask them to do something that I wouldn't do myself. Yeah. So I think the respect is there because they see that I work just as hard as them, and it's not a case of, you know, me being sat above them just giving orders out. So I'd probably describe it as quite relaxed, but relaxed in a way that I treat people like adults.
Yeah. So it's being able to have grown-up conversations with people. Yeah. And it sounds like you have a very collaborative approach in respect of how you communicate with each other, how you work with each other. Yeah. And you obviously, if you're all sat together, you're also learning at the same time in respect of how people are doing things or picking things up. Yeah. Do you find that useful? Do you think it would be the same if you all worked from home?
No. I mean, we're across 2 floors now. When I first took on the office, we just had 1 floor, but then as the team's grown, we took on the floor above it as well. But one thing that we really thrive on is being together. Like, anyone that follows us on social media will know, you know, we do spend a lot of time making fun videos together. And at first, people couldn't really understand why we were doing them. I think it was very different from what other financial firms were doing. You know, the others were quite serious or just didn't do video at all. But we started doing them because we've worked through some really hard times, you know, COVID and the market's crashing, Liz Truss with what she did to interest rates. And one thing that's got us through all of that is us pulling together. Like, we might just say, right, we have 10 minutes, let's do this daft video. And then we all leave laughing and smiling, the energy's back up. And we are tight-knit, and our customers absolutely love that. They love seeing what we're going to be doing this week together. And I just don't think you can have that if you're all working at home. No. So it's building that community again. Yeah. Okay. And obviously with finance, you come across as a really bubbly, interactive person. And finance can be quite dull. Mm-hmm. It can be quite dry. Yeah. Certainly, you know, how they teach you to do things at school is it's very, I don't know if the correct word is quite separate to what you come out and do in the real world in respect of, you know, bills and APRs and, you know, credit cards and mortgages and you know, how do you think that we do as a society in that respect, you know, from the schooling side and, you know, to how it transpires in real life? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's probably my biggest frustration with the UK. We're doing a lot of work at the moment. So we've done some work with schools, and at the moment we're in Selby College for the next few months. So we're going in there every couple of weeks, doing 3 to 4 sessions a day with their students, all about money. Amazing. Not getting paid for it. You know, there's nothing in it for us. It is literally just for us to go and give something back.
What do you cover in those sessions?
So it's very simple money skills because they are only 16 to 18. So we're not going in and giving them the full lowdown on a mortgage. But we cover all the basics that we think we wish we'd have known back then. So basic banking skills, savings, you know, what a loan does, what a loan looks like, credit cards, how you do buy a house so that they know when they're ready what the difference is between buying and renting. We keep it really, really simple and stripped back. But yeah, we get really frustrated with the fact that you go to school and you learn so many things that you never use as an adult, but you're not taught those basics that have such a huge impact. And we have so many customers that come to us that clearly have very low financial education, and that gets them into a mess. So they'll go to uni, take out a student credit card, take out a student overdraft, and it just spirals from there if they don't know how to manage it. And I think so much could be fixed with just better financial education.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, I remember when I went to university, this was in 2003, so a while back, but, you know, I got given it, I didn't even apply for one, you know, I was encouraged to take one out, and there you go, you know, I didn't have a job, but you've got a credit card, and, you know, there's this whole thing around APR and how it, you know, how it accrues or it doesn't accrue, but you don't get taught that. You just think, oh, it's, you know, kind of like this cute little card and you can go buy stuff with it. But that financial education isn't there. And then young people find themselves in debt a lot quicker nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. Car finance is one of the biggest issues that we see, because someone turns 18, they've got a job, they're living at home, they've got quite a high level of disposable income. You know, it's very easy for them to walk into an Audi garage feeling like an absolute baller, walk out with a car and 20 grand on car finance. And it's scary how easy it is to get debt that isn't a mortgage, because it's not regulated in the same way. The checks just aren't the same. It's very easy to get debt. Knowing how to manage debt is very different. And I just think there's a huge gap there.
And obviously you're going into college, that's like your part of, you know, your commitment to helping young people understand that. Because again, they won't understand that, yes, you can go get that, you know, that car or that credit card, but then the day that you come to apply for that mortgage, that actually goes against, you know, what you could borrow, or it has a negative impact because you don't have enough income, you know, disposable income to support the mortgage because you have all of these things. So if you have any young listeners today listening to the podcast, what would be one key takeaway that you would tell them if there was one thing to focus on or one thing to consider? What would that be?
Just learn how to budget. I think budgeting is one thing even most adults get wrong. I think we're in this world now where everything's so fast-paced. Everybody lives for today. It's very keeping up with the Joneses, what's on Instagram. And now we've got the world of influencers. People spend like crazy on things that they really don't need. And I think learning to budget and knowing how to stick to a budget just puts you on a really good path for your future life and actually getting a house and knowing you can pay your bills, because it's probably easier than ever to waste money. And people do. I mean, I sit and look at bank statements all day, every day. And if you go back 20 years and saw what people were spending the money on then to what they are now, you know, the amount of money people spend on takeaways alone and Uber Eats and getting an Uber, everything, TikTok shop.
And it's easy because you've got the contactless now as well. You don't even need to think about it. You just literally go beep and then you don't see it go out. It's just almost instant. And
it is scary. And I think people spend, but then a lot of the time people will just avoid looking at their online banking, you know, and then they'll get a shock when they've spent loads. But knowing how to budget would be my number one thing.
Okay.
Because if you can budget, everything else should fall into place around that.
And then you can understand where we have to focus. You know, if there is something to correct.
Definitely.
So have you found, obviously you talked earlier about you love a challenge. So it's kind of like, you know, come to me with your challenge, I'll present you the solution or we'll find a way. Have you ever found yourself in a position that you've had a client that, you know, it couldn't quite work out for them mortgage-wise? Or have you always managed to, you know, pull it out of the bag and get that happy ending for them?
Yeah, there will always be people that have just got, too much bad credit or it's been very recent. If somebody's just gone bankrupt a week ago, they're not going to be able to get a mortgage. But what we do is we don't just shun people off and say, off you go, we can't help you. We will generally say, right, over the next 6 months, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And then we'll speak to them again. We generally always follow up with people. So there's some customers that I think the longest one I had, I was speaking to for 4 years before they bought anywhere. And that's probably our point of difference, because a lot of advisors won't want to know unless you're there ready with your deposit, your perfect credit rating, and you're off to go. Yeah. We will work with people early on, even if they've not started saving yet, we're more than happy to talk to people. We would rather talk to people early on so that we make sure they don't make any mistakes while they're getting ready to buy. And we can put them in the best position possible, speaking to them early as well.
Amazing. That's brilliant. That's going to be very satisfying as well to see them through that journey and help them through.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we've talked about the business. We've talked about your journey, you being a working mom, building a team, that leadership, supporting, the community with the networking as well, and all giving back in respect of the college and the work that you do. What do you do to balance that out? Do you have a passion? I know that you mentioned about, finding that balance and, fitness. And I know you've got do you want to expand on that? Do you want to tell our viewers today about that?
Yeah, I'm not very good at sitting still. So I definitely don't just relax. That's probably my biggest weakness, is ever really taking any downtime. But yeah, I do have a huge belief in keeping yourself healthy. I think as a business owner, you have to do it. I think not only for your own fitness, but for your mental fitness as well. I think if you're not taking any time, like when I look back to when I first started and I was working all the hours under the sun, I really wasn't looking after myself back then. I found no time to really do a lot of exercise or look after what I was eating. And looking at how I am now, I did 2 marathons last year.
Wow.
I've done CrossFit for quite a while, but I do competitions for CrossFit as well. So I'll train generally about 6 times a week. People do say, I can't fit it in. But
where do you find the time?
I think you just have to fit it in. Again, it's if you really want to do something, you will find time for it.
But do you go to sleep?
Yes.
So what does your start and finish look like? What time do you get up?
So I normally get up at about 6.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm going to go running, I'll run on a morning. If I'm doing CrossFit, I'll do it on a night. But yeah, we have actually just started a run club in the office.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
how's it going?
It was the first week last week. People are scared of doing it so far, so it's only been a few of us. But yeah, just like pulling together and just having a break in the day and going off and doing a little run, it re-energizes people as well. Yeah. When you sat at your desk for hours, you start to come down. So having that little break in between, because we are all workaholics in the office. We will sit and eat at our desk and everything and not move. So
it forces you to take that break.
Yeah. And again, it's doing something else together. I'm really passionate about getting the team together, not just for work. So we have 3 to 4 work events a year where I'll take the team out for the day. We'll shut the office.
Yeah.
Customers love it. At first, I thought we were going to get people kicking off saying, why are you closed? You need to be at work. But customers absolutely love seeing an employer take their staff away to do something that isn't work. And it just makes the team closer as well. So it's good.
And I think it makes your customers follow your journey even more, know that, you're not just there as these robots that sit behind there to give advice. You're actual people that, care about each other and you believe in what you're delivering.
Yeah. And it's a conversation starter as well. Like when we do speak to new customers, a lot of them will be like, I saw you did this last week, because they follow us on TikTok or whatever. And it does really work.
Amazing. So Kylie-Ann, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you, to hear about your journey. It's certainly inspiring. And, we look forward to seeing where KAG goes in the future and continues to grow. So as we wrap things up, where would be the stage that I would come in and speak to you first? Is it at the point of getting a mortgage or is it before that? What would you advise?
Before that, I think as soon as you're ready, you're thinking about buying a property, get in touch with us. You can find us on pretty much every social media platform there is out there: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. And we have an office in Selby as well. So come see us.
Amazing. Well, there you have it, folks. Don't wait till you need that mortgage. Go grab a coffee with Kylie-Ann and her team and go get advice from, financial advisors with a different twist. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, please like, share, and subscribe, and we hope to see you again soon.